Hello and welcome to Transitions, the show that will help you transition through life. I'm your host, Chris Powell, and I am joined by my co-host, Emily Pierce. Say hi, Emily.
Hi.
There you go. And today we're talking with Dr. Laurie Ford, who is a licensed mental health counselor and in the state of North Carolina. She is also the author of A Fatherless Child. We will talk with Laurie about her journey to become a licensed mental health counselor and her book, Fatherless Child. As always, please like and follow Transitions on Instagram and Facebook at Transitions Podcast Show. You can always shoot us an email at transitionspodcast7@gmail.com or visit us on our webpage and subscribe to get updates at transitionspodcast7.com. We look forward to hearing from you. Now, our guest today is Dr. Laurie Ford. Laurie, welcome to Transitions.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me.
We are so happy. We are just excited so much to have you here. So tell us a little about yourself. I mean, where did you come from? What got you involved? I mean, and what is your specialty? What is the essence of what you're doing, and who are you serving?
Okay, that's a loaded question, but I'll start
Yes,
with
that's
who
a
I
lot
am.
of questions. So we'll just go one at a time. Who are you? Where are you at? That's a good one too.
Okay, so I'm Laurie Ford, and I love that you introduced me as Dr. Laurie Ford. Not yet. Something I guess the Holy Spirit's telling you, but I'm not a doctor yet. But I am a licensed clinical mental health counselor in the state of North Carolina, and I am serving the entire state of North Carolina right now, but I reside in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Very good. And what got you into doing what you're doing?
So a lot of my personal life experiences really helped me decide that I want to be in the helping profession. And so I'll give you an example. Me growing up without my biological mom, she was addicted to drugs. Me growing up without my biological father, I was raised by my grandparents. So I suffered a lot of low self-esteem, depression, and just a lot of doubt. And so as I began to work through my issues and go through school, I realized that because I didn't get the help that I needed as far as professionally growing up, that I wanted to be that change agent to be able to help others in that capacity. And so I went to college. I went to Shaw University. I went to North Carolina A&T State University, and I majored in school counseling, and then later on got my license as a clinician. So me going through my issues birthed a profession in me.
Let me ask you, that's a great segue into what would you advise people that have a lot of issues that are centered on a particular place and they have a real heart to do it, but they're scared to jump out and do something like that? Were you scared or a little bit apprehensive to launch out and try and do this?
I was definitely scared, but every time I ignored it, like God just kept tugging on my heart, like this is a part of your purpose, like your testimony is a part of your purpose. I will say that you have to do your inner work and make sure you're getting your healing and your education before you jump out there and try to help other people, because you'll bleed on other people. So my best advice would be seek the Lord, talk to him about your purpose, let him guide you as you are going through your own healing process, because you won't be able to help anybody else if you're not healed yourself.
Folks, do you hear that? That is gold, what she just said. So what does that inner process of healing, what did it look like for you?
Woo! Roller coaster, emotional roller coaster. But at the end, you're lucky to get off. You're happy to get off that ride to a new you. So I would say, like, for instance, I had an unhealed heart. So an unhealed heart looked like I needed validation, running after accomplishments, trying to rescue everybody, being upset if my family didn't agree with me. And so a healed heart looks like, okay, when I look in the mirror, I love what I see in my mirror reflection. When I seek the Lord, I'm excited to hear what he has to say and not be mad at him, right? I don't seek validations from others. And so going through that process, I had to first acknowledge there is a problem. Why do you get so upset when everybody's not on your team? Why are you running after so many accomplishments and trying to fill voids that's unfillable? And so first you got to acknowledge, number one, there's a problem. Number two, what do I do about that, right? Number three, talk to your higher power, talk to God, and see where he wants you to go from there. Number 4, do the work. I had to go to therapy, and I had to literally do the work. Everything the therapist told me, I had to talk to my inner child. I had to release some of the guilt and shame and forgive myself. So it is a lot more to it, but I just want to keep it small. But those are some of the things I had to go through in order to be an asset to the people God has called me to.
So when you're going through therapy, what would have happened had you not gone through therapy?
One, I would have opened a private practice and closed in 30 days, because I'll be honest, a lot of the clients that God has brought to me deal with the same issues I dealt with in the past. I probably would have cried with them. It would have been a Me Too session, and that's not helpful for anybody. If I'm coming to you as a therapist, as an expert, I can go to my friends for a Me Too session. Oh, girl, me too. This is not it. I'm a therapist to provide a safe space for you to share your wounds with me, and me be able to help you be accountable and heal through that. If I'm saying me too, girl, we're both just going to end up crying. And so a lot of people I wouldn't have a business. A lot of people would still be unhealed. And my name I wouldn't be representing God in the spirit of excellence like I am now.
Folks, listen to the matrix that she just put you through. It's a reflection matrix. Look in the mirror and use that as a bit of a guide. Where are you right now in that continuum or that matrix? And then, are you so prideful that you can't ask for help, folks? Is that right, doctor?
Right,
or
exactly.
I keep calling you doctor because I feel you're a doctor.
Keep doing it. It's okay. Look, that's why I said the Lord must be telling you something, so I'm not going to fight it.
So what are you still in therapy?
I am. I go once a month. I believe every therapist needs a therapist, because we are holding a safe space for other people's trauma, but we're still people. People think therapists are no, we're still people. We go through our own issues. We have our own things going on with family. And the biggest thing about growth, you might heal through one thing, but as you grow, something else comes up. And so it's okay to get maintenance help. So I at least go once a month. And then I'll be honest, when I was writing my book, I went twice a month, because those were some wounds that I didn't tap into as much as I thought. And so I needed to go more often.
Wow, that is insightful, because the old adage, if you're a coach, you better have a coach. If you're a therapist, you better have a therapist. Otherwise you're not practicing basically what you preach. Is that right?
Exactly. You're a hypocrite, basically.
Yeah. So we have a lot of people out there, and I better do this. What is there a segment you niche into? Is it strictly women, or is it abuse, or is it broad gambit, or what? Is there one particular field? I mean, I heard some things, but where is your niche? Your very, very deep clientele, I guess you would say.
So my niche is women. Sorry, guys. I serve only women as of now, young adults from the age of 18 to 45. I know that's kind of broad range, but that's just who I've been called to. And I basically serve women who are dealing with traumatic experience, such as daddy issues or any unhealed issues that they need to talk about. I deal with anxiety, but I do a lot of inner child work. So when that little girl shows up in you, I do a lot of work with that. My favorite slogan is, until you can heal, your voice can't be heard, because you are speaking from an unhealed voice, and an unhealed voice cannot be heard because you're speaking from anger. And so I help women heal their voice so they can take their power back.
Great. And you wrote a book about this, didn't you?
I did. I definitely did.
And what is that book? Tell us a little about the book.
So the book is called The Fatherless Heart, the story of a fatherless child. And the story of a fatherless child is me. I am telling my story about my healing process that took place with me not knowing my biological father, and then me growing up with a grandfather who was addicted to alcohol. And so I felt invisible. I didn't feel any worth, because I said earlier, I didn't know my mom. And so as I went through that process, God showed me that he was my father, and that it brought me closer to him, to lean on him as my heavenly father. So in the workbook, it's not just a regular book, me telling my story. It's my story mixed with helping you heal your story.
Very good. Very good. I want to bring in a diversity piece here, but I don't know exactly how to do that with a question.
Go for it.
Do you find in the diversity and the ethnicities there is a segment that's more? I don't want to make this sound too,
Go
because it's
for it.
global. Everything's global. It
Mhm.
works no matter who you are. But do you see any in a culture any more of that specifically in a certain culture than another?
Yeah, definitely in my culture, the African American society culture, it's just how we were raised from generations to generations. We don't really talk about things. And I'll just be honest, I think it goes all the way back to slavery. We didn't have a voice, we didn't have a choice. And, the fathers would take it away from the mothers, was family was split up. So in our eyes, this is normal. So for us, it's like, oh, it's normal not to have your father in your life. And so as a mother, I'm your mother and father. Instead of saying, you know what, you need your father and I can help you go to the Boys and Girls Club to find one, get you in a mentorship. But instead, in our culture, we've been taught to be silent, be strong, and strong look like masking your emotions. So don't talk about being a father. Now, I do know it happens in every other culture, but I do think that every other culture is more open than in the African American culture. So, of course, my book is for everybody, but I'll say that it happens more in the African American community. So my goal was to break the stigma. Let's talk about this healing process because we don't talk about it. Oh, your daddy's not here. That's it. No, let's talk about this. And it's okay to be emotional about it. It's okay to share your feelings about it. And so for the African American culture, if you don't get anything from the book, I want to normalize you being sad that your father is not there. Not saying your stepfather is not a good father, not saying your grandpa not a good father, but acknowledging I needed my real father if it's just for your identity alone.
And I got to tell you, Laurie, this, some segments of society can't even fathom or identify with that. And so,
Exactly.
folks, I'm telling you, be accepting of everybody. Be accepting of all cultures and where everybody's coming from. Everybody has been raised in their ethnicities in different ways. So give grace, give a lot of room for growth. And now, let me ask you, Laurie, about forgiveness. Let's talk about forgiveness for a while. Okay. That's a little bit of a piece of this, I would imagine.
A huge piece.
Why don't you talk on that?
I would say for me, forgiveness started with acknowledging what happened, but also looking at the facts. And that took a lot of work. For instance, I had to look at the fact that my grandpa did not get what he needed to give me what I needed. So then with forgiveness, I started to have more compassion, not making excuses, but being real. Like my grandfather had to start working at 9. He started raising kids at 16. He didn't have nothing to offer me. He didn't know. He did the best he could with what he knew. And so I had to realize, like, I'm looking for things that he couldn't even give me because his father didn't give it to him. And so when we are holding this grudge against people that don't even, it's like you expecting $1,000 for somebody that's in a negative 100. They don't have it. So we having these expectations, and it's like, no, let's look at the facts. Let's talk to God about it, start showing compassion, and then release that and say, you know what? I need to forgive him as I forgive myself for holding a grudge.
Do you have any specific techniques that you have for doing that? I mean, there's in the Christian realm, there's theophostic prayer that does a lot of that. There's all sorts of these techniques and methodologies. Do you have anything specific that you see works really, really well?
I would say for the practical way, 2 things. So we write a letter to whoever the person that you need to forgive, but you also write a letter to yourself, telling yourself what you missed out on, what you needed. So dear Lord, I miss the daddy-daughter dance, right? Because you have to get it out. You hold it in, you have to get it out of you. And then you write the letter to the other person, right? Getting it out. And then you put it in a box and you bury that box, you burn the box, you mail it off. You have a funeral for those letters, if that makes sense.
That is beautiful, folks. There is just gold coming out of this. Please pay attention, listen, and reflect. Okay, so now we're going to take a commercial break, and we're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsor, and we will return.
happy living here. I love good things made by good people. That's why I love Dry Farm Wines. I first met the man known as the healthiest wino on earth back in 2016. He claimed Dry Farm Wines don't cause headaches or hangovers, and that he started his company because 99% of wine consumed in the U.S. is highly processed and loaded with nasties. Like most processed food, it's toxic. That very night, I made a big health decision. Toxic wines out, natural wines in. It's been nearly 5 years since I made the switch, and I feel great. Go to happyliving.com, select Partners in Happy, and get your first bottle of natural wine for 1 penny. And I'll donate 8% of every order placed for the entire month of March to WITV7. So share the gift of natural wine with a friend. It'll make you both happy.
Thank you to our sponsor, and for those just joining us, we are here with Laurie Ford, licensed mental health counselor and author of Fatherless Child. Welcome, Laurie. I'm excited to have you. You have an energy about you that is just amazing. You really light up a room, and I'm really excited for our listeners to hear about your story. So you mentioned in the previous segment that you had daddy issues and that you had to work through them in order to become a counselor. Can you talk a little bit more in detail about that for maybe women that have the same issues but want to understand, like, what do I do to get better? What is it like?
Mm-hmm. Yes, Emily, thank you. And thank you for the compliment. So yes, daddy issues, it was something that I dealt with for a long time. So you always look for that identity piece. So your mom and your dad. And so for me, it was having those conversations with your dad, having a daddy-daughter dance that I missed out on, having the conversation about the birds and the bees, those things I missed out on, or just that affection from a man. And so a lot of my decisions with men that wasn't so good affected me because I didn't have that example. I didn't have a man saying, hey, set standards for yourself. Just because the guy say I love you doesn't mean you got to go on another date with him. So I missed out on a lot of that. And my biggest piece for me was I always was searching for validation. I didn't have that encouragement to say, you're beautiful just the way you are. I didn't have that. So if a guy said I was beautiful, it's like, ooh, I didn't hear that. Ring to my ears. And he could be like, someone abuser that I shouldn't, talk to. But because my heart yearned for that, it just started attaching itself to toxic relationships. And so I would just encourage anyone that we got to work through those issues and figure out okay, I'm searching for this validation, but I'm going to have to either seek therapy or get closer to your uncle or your grandpa or someone that can kind of help you through that. And then, of course, closer to God, because the things God says about us is just amazing. And so hearing God say, I'm a masterpiece and that I am chosen and I am in his image, to me, that was all the validation I needed.
Wow. So you mentioned that you went to therapy. Besides therapy, what else did you do on your own to develop that confidence and validation for yourself?
One big thing, practical thing, is journaling. I don't think we give that credit enough. Really writing out my feelings daily, because I feel like when your feelings are in your head, it's very cluttered. So writing out in a journal, so much prayer, and so many devotionals. So when I didn't have the energy to pour into myself, I would read God's word, read devotional, go to church, listen to my pastor, because I just didn't have the energy and I just wasn't confident. And when you listen to the word or hear the word, it's like you just get this newfound glow in you. Because God, you really think of me like this? I thought I was okay, but the way you're talking to me and the way you think about me, it's okay, I got a whole new confidence. Masterpiece. Okay. So yes. And then you chime out all of those negative thoughts that you tell your own self. And also the Holy Spirit will just reveal to you, you are worthy, no matter if you have a earthly mother and father or not. I created them to create you, and that's your purpose.
That's amazing that you were able to go through so much and come out and be successful. For women that are listening to us now, can you give them words of encouragement on their worst day? How do they move forward?
Just knowing that your situation is not forever. It doesn't dictate your worth. It doesn't dictate who you are. And one of the huge things I had to keep telling myself, it's not your fault, Laurie. You didn't just pop up and have to be here. Like, you didn't just put yourself in this. It's not your fault. So releasing that guilt that you could have done something different, or, you know, if I would have just looked better or act better, then the mom or dad will come back. That's not the case. Like, we look at the situation for what it is and start doing things that give you peace and joy, whether it's being outside in nature, whether it's being around family who love you, whether it's taking yourself to a spa day. Like, start doing things that help you in your confidence a little bit, because everything is not your fault. And so on those worst days, you got to pick yourself back up and say, you know, it's not so good day, but if I only have one affirmation, I'm going to say it's not my fault.
Wow. I can tell you personally, I know what you're saying works because I've had to do it in my own life. And it's not easy, especially for women. I think women have burdens on them that the other men don't. You know, they have the weight of the world. And that self-care aspect is so important. I want to mention something that Chris started to mention, but I think is really important because, as you know, I'm going to school for my master's in mental health counseling, and they talk a lot. Yeah, I'm very excited. So they talk a lot about culture and cultural competency, right? As much as I want to relate to an African-American woman or person, I don't know what they've been through, because their culture comes with so many different aspects than what I've experienced. I feel like it's so important for you to speak to African-American women who may be down and out and feeling like they can't continue because maybe that's what they've been told. And I just want you to talk to them for a minute and really give them solid advice or something that specifically worked for you.
Okay. One thing I had to tell myself is, just because you've been taught that doesn't mean it's correct. And I'm going to be honest. So because your mom or your dad may have been taught the same thing, so we have to acknowledge that, okay, this is what I've been taught, but I don't feel this is right. Not saying your mom and dad is wrong, but saying that, okay, now I have to retrain my thoughts. So I have to be intentional to know that, okay, this is what I've been taught, but I have to move forward with something different. It doesn't serve me anymore. My biggest advice to you is to take off the cape, the strong cape, and redefine that cape. So the strong cape looks like I'm not talking to anybody. I'm isolating. I'm the strong one. I have to hold it together. I have to look good. I have to do this. And it's like, take off that cape. That's not what you've been put on this earth to do, to mask your emotions, to carry the burdens for everyone. That's what we've been taught, right? A strong woman carries the burdens and keep her emotions in. Take that off and redefine your cape. So my cape now says, a strong woman shows emotion. A strong woman, when she cries, they are tears of healing. A strong woman asks for help. You can't do everything. A strong woman sets aside time to have self-care, to seek the Lord, to take breaks, to be there for family, right? So I would say, if anything, redefine that cape. Your cape might say, I'm a strong Black woman, and your new cape can say strong Black woman, redefined as a helping leader.
I absolutely love what you just said. Redefine your cape and who you are. And it's so true. You almost brought tears to my eyes because it's very, very true. And I'm not the type of person to get emotional, but yeah, I mean, that was really empowering. Thank you. Because I know our listeners are going to appreciate that. Talk a little bit about what success looks like for you today and any plans moving forward.
My biggest thing is, success to me just looks like walking in your purpose. So whatever God has spoken to you and the assignment he's called you to, definitely taking steps every day to do that. So for me, that's what success looks like. Whether it's he wants you to go back to school, he wants you to take a break, whatever that looks like, that is successful. If you're not walking in your purpose, I think we need to sit down and say, God, what do you want me to do? Because we've been put on this earth by God. So we're just getting all these accolades and doing it. He might be like, good job, 2 claps, but that's not what I've called you to do. So really sit down and say, hey, God, what do you want me to do? And what do I need to get rid of? Where do I need to heal in order to do that? So for me, that's what success looked like to me. Laurie, in the future, my business, I have a private practice. So right now, just me. But in the future, my goal is to hire other clinicians, train them to make sure that they're spreading the word and healing under my name in order to operate in the spirit of excellence, operate in their purpose, operate in their calling. Because I think that under my private practice, we can just make sure we are healing on a bigger spectrum than just me.
Well, I want to thank you again for being here and adding such value to our audience and listeners, because I know that when they listen to this podcast, they're going to get something from it. I'm going to hand it over to Chris.
Yes, thank you. And I do have some questions that I did not get to in the first part. One of them is self-forgiveness, forgiving self. What did that play into your healing?
I had to do a lot of talking to my inner child. So in therapy, we use this technique called the empty chair. And we put a sticky note, which could be my 12-year-old self or my 19-year-old self, whichever part of me I was struggling with. And it was the 12-year-old self, like preteen. And then it was some mistakes I did in college that I was not proud of. And so what my therapist did, put a sticky note. I literally had to talk to her as if I was a mom or a mentor. And I had to say, hey, it's okay. That's all you knew then. I love you and I need you to love yourself. Like I had to really pour into the 12-year-old. But I think the therapeutic moment for me was me saying it. And it was my job as an adult to give my inner child what she needs. And I think that's the biggest thing and played a huge part. That inner child's going to show up because she's wounded. I'm in my 30s, but 12-year-old still deep down like, hey, I still need love. I need you to protect me. And you just talk to her in a calm voice. I got you. I love you. You don't have to rise up now. You don't have to be in survival mode. I got you. I'm going to love on you. You're not in that unhealed place anymore. You're not in that survival place no more. So for me, that self-forgiveness was a lot of talking to the person I used to be.
So, folks, that's a perfect example of a therapy that is going to be extremely difficult on your own because there is these blind spots, there's awareness. Everything she just talked about was awareness, coming into an awareness, and it's painful. And unless you have somebody step on beside you doing that, it is, I don't even know if it's possible. Would you say that's even possible, Laurie?
No. Number one, I didn't even know what that technique was. Number two, I didn't even know how much I was comfortable releasing my emotions because someone was there providing a safe space that I trusted. So even though we love our friends, we may trust them, but they don't have the tools and the capacity to help you with those wounded emotions. You have to go to someone who is spiritual and practical, and they have their degree, they have their training, and they can help you with that. And so my therapist knew where to push me. I don't know how to push I could have overdid it if I was in my closet by myself, but she knew where to go and when to stop and when to offer advice, when to hug me. One big thing stood out for me is she gave me a teddy bear. So when I was feeling that emotion, I was holding on to the teddy bear as I was talking to the chair.
Folks, I'm telling you, if you're trying to put on that cape of strength that Laurie was talking about and doing it on your own, you have a very hard, you probably won't be able to do it. There's all sorts of different avenues. There's therapy. There's folks like Celebrate Recovery and, the recovery groups. There is all sorts of things. Now, we're going to close out in just a couple of minutes, but let me ask you something. There's a continuum of this from very harsh physical and sexual abuse in young children all the way to rather light, but still having some situations. Can you rapidly speak to that kind of continuum there?
Okay, can you clarify a little more? Because I know sexual abuse is not my expertise. So I want to make sure I am.
Okay, so there you go. So that's a case in point. You do want to get to a therapist that does niche into those pieces, because that's a very, very specific piece, and it's a very deep-rooted piece that only a professional can bring out. Would you say that's correct, Laurie?
Definitely. And I do want to say every therapist cannot help you with everything. And so that's why it's important. If you're looking for a therapist and you're dealing with addiction or sexual trauma, please find a therapist that specializes in that, because a generalist cannot help you in those areas. And so I do have knowledge of it. I even have experience with it with my personal home, but that's not my niche. And so I would kindly refer you to someone that is niche in that area.
That is wisdom, folks. By the way, if you do run into a therapist that says they can do everything, run away.
Please, real quick.
As fast as you can, because they are going to mess you up.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that right? So
yes.
Okay, I think we're still good on time. I think I can squeeze one more question in. All right, so where exactly are you located? You said North Carolina, you serve all of North Carolina, but where physically are you located? Where's your office at?
So my office is in the comfort of my own home. During the pandemic, I opened my private practice. So now I'm only virtual. So I have a virtual address, but I do not have a actual office location. So everything is virtual right now. So nobody's coming to my home with therapy. We're all virtual. No. So yeah, right now I haven't, the Lord is still working on what the location will be. Right now that we're in the pandemic, this is working for me and the clients that I serve. I can say that they're more comfortable virtual because they're in their own space. And so I've been very creative in the techniques that I have as far as virtual to be able to still help those same issues you would help in person.
Okay. So now, do you do anything with groups?
I do. So I have a self-esteem and a women empowerment group, and I also teach how to create your own workbook or book masterclass. So those are two big groups that I definitely do right now.
All right. So how can people contact you?
So you can visit my website at www.lfordcounseling.com, or you can visit my Instagram at _Mrs.FordCounseling, or Facebook, Laurie Ford Counseling and Consulting. Okay,
so we're wrapping up. One thing that is top of mind, the most important that you want to talk directly to this audience about, just one thing.
If you're thinking about doing your inner work on your own, think again. That's all I want to say. If you're thinking about doing the inner work again, think again, and visit my website. If you even have any hesitation, visit my website and just see if my site speaks to you, and then make your decision.
Perfect. All right, Emily, why don't you send us out of here?
We want to thank our guests for speaking with us today. Laurie, again, I'm going to ask you to tell us your contact information, just so if somebody wants to contact you, they can do so.
Okay, you can contact me at www.lfordcounseling.com. That's my website. You can also contact me on my Instagram page, _Mrs.FordCounseling, or Facebook, Laurie Ford Counseling and Consulting.
Perfect. Thank you. So don't forget, folks, to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Transitions Podcast, and visit our website to subscribe to updates at transitionspodcast7.com. And you can always email us questions or feedback at transitionspodcast7@gmail.com. And please contribute to our host, WYTV7. And you can do that by visiting wytv7.org. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you all. Laurie, Emily, it was awesome. All right. Thank you so much. Guys.